Welcome. You are listening to Purpose Driven Wealth, the podcast for empowered investors. If you're an investor who is tired of playing the Wall Street casino, stay tuned. On this show, we bring on industry experts to discuss leading strategies to help you make empowered decisions with your hard-earned capital. And now, here is your host, Mo Bina.
Welcome to Purpose Driven Wealth. I am your host, Mo Bina. Today on the show, we have Jon Ostenson. Jon is the CEO of FranBridge Consulting and has helped thousands of entrepreneurs and investors explore business ownership and investment opportunities. He's the author of the book, Non-Food Franchising, and is a frequent contributor and thought leader for publications on the topic of franchising and franchise investments. Jon, welcome to the show.
Mo, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I am too. Thank you for coming on. Jon, let's get started. I'd love to hear kind of like more about your background and how eventually you got started in franchising.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like so many of your listeners, Mo, I spent many years in the corporate world and had a good run, but always had that entrepreneurial itch and didn't know what it would take to really step away and what that looked like. And anyway, made the jump about 7-8 years ago from a public company to a private company. Now, private company was Shelf Genie franchise system, which has custom pull-out shelving at the core of the business. We had owners all across North America. And I had the opportunity to step in as president of Shelf Genie and support all these franchisees on a day-to-day basis. And for me, that was that light bulb moment that, hey, there are other paths to business ownership that I hadn't thought about in the past. I'd always associated franchising with fast food, and yet there's so many other industries out there. So fast forward, I ended up partnering with the founder of Shelf Genie. We spun off, we've invested in franchises ourselves. So I've been on the franchisor side of the table, and now I'm a multi-brand franchisee myself. I have also had other partners. I've also made some of the investments on my own. And so have a small portfolio of different franchise investments and have good people running those for me, and allows me to spend most of my time helping others do the same.
Oh, that's great. When people think of franchises, a lot of times people may question and wonder, like, well, what are the advantages? What are the disadvantages of franchising versus if I were to just start a business on my own from scratch?
Yeah, and I'd start by saying franchising is not right for everyone. I do think some people are too entrepreneurial and want to put their thumbprints all over anything, and it may not be the best fit for them. But for so many out there, it truly is a better path to ownership. And some of the things that I would point to would be, day one, that you're launching a business that has a path to profitability. It's been proven out in other markets. You're not having to guess at what that is. You've got a playbook. It's time to just go execute it. You've got a franchisor on the sidelines that, assuming we get matched up with a good franchise system, and that's where we help our clients, that franchisor acts as a coach. The better you do, the better they do. And so you have aligned interest. You also have all these other franchisees all across North America that are running the same business day in, day out. And you get to learn from them and their experiences. Then there's just so many small things that maybe the supply chain, you're able to get leverage because you're buying in bulk. And that could be products. It could also be services. The marketing team may have more data from all their previous launch experiences. So you're not walking in with unoptimized marketing spend. Instead, you're able to really optimize it from day one. So, there's just so many small benefits. And also when you go to sell the business down the road upon an exit, there's been research done, I'm happy to get into more detail, but showing that franchise businesses and like-kind industries as non-franchised often trade at a multiple as high as 1.5 times the non-franchised businesses. So there's value in that resale in the eyes of the buyer as well. So when you package it all together, I think it's pretty compelling.
Oh, interesting. So with that higher resale value, I guess a lot of it also comes with the brand and the name recognition too, right? An established business and the chain and the supply, and like you mentioned, some of the advantages with like supply chain leverage and so forth.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when you look at different industries. I'd say definitely in food and hotels, which are the two spaces we don't play in, brand is probably much more important. In some industries, say insulation. Insulation is a $50 billion a year industry in the US alone. Most people couldn't name 2 or 3 insulation companies, maybe not even one. And so you have these highly fragmented spaces where if you go in with, let's say, a white collar approach to a blue collar industry, brand is less important than the marketing and the technology and the fact that you're answering the phone. Sometimes the bar is so low in the market with the competition, they're able to go in and really gain market share without a whole lot of effort.
No, interesting. When people think of franchising, and I used to do this as well too, they automatically think about food and maybe like a quick service, chains, like the typical like McDonald's and so forth, and the KFCs out there. But how is non-food franchising different from food franchising?
Yeah, there are definitely similarities, but and I'll start by saying I'm thankful to everyone that does food franchising. I'm a consumer. We definitely need those guys. It's just my humble belief that there are easier ways to make money, and that's where most of my clients would agree with me, probably 95% of them. And some of the reasons that we like these other industries are there. It may be less capital intense out of the door. It may have fewer operating hours, may require less hourly employees. I'd also say a big thing to us is we like non-trendy. I think food at times can tend to be trendy. You think about like frozen yogurt as an example, or some of the fast casual concepts out there. And what I found is my clients like boring, non-trendy, non-sexy, cash flowing, Amazon resistant, maybe more needs-based type businesses. So how that plays out, it's industries like home and property services, whether it be, I mentioned insulation, or it could be gutters or dumpsters or floor coatings, those kind of spaces, high variable cost, you can scale it over time. In some states, it's still oil changes. We're still doing some of those, things in health and wellness. I think everyone these days is saying, well, what if the economy turns soft and that recession we've been talking about for a decade finally comes to pass? What kind of business do you want to be in? And what I go to is, hey, what will people spend on regardless of the economy? It's things they care about: their kids, their pets, their aging parents, their homes, their health to some degree. And so businesses that cater to these, and there's so many niches within each of these umbrellas, that's where we see a lot of interest.
Interesting. Do the royalties and the startup costs and so forth, do they tend to be lower or about the same when you're looking at food versus like non-food franchises?
Yeah, oftentimes your franchise fees fairly consistent. You might be 50,000 for that first location, 30,000 for the next, something in that ballpark. But I'd say your startup costs, because in a lot of these cases, like some of the examples I mentioned, you don't have a big retail presence, that's customer facing. Now, oil changes, some of these health and wellness concepts, you still have that. But I'd say on average, it's less capital because you may have less equipment, you may have less kind of stipulations out of the gate. So by and large, it is a lower investment. A lot of our clients are getting into things between 150 and 400,000, whereas if you were to do food, you're multiples on top of that.
I see. Are there any major trends taking place right now in the franchising industry?
Yeah, I'd say industry-wise, the whole idea of non-trendy is the new trendy, is my opinion. And so I'd say that's definitely the case. In Mo, I have never seen so much interest in what we do. Our business, it just continues to grow every year. In fact, in the first half of this year, we'll do more than what we did in all of last year from a client placement standpoint. Last year was probably up 50% from the prior year. It's just going gangbusters. And I think that's a combination of a few things. I still think coming out of COVID, a lot of people are questioning the path they're on. Maybe they don't want to go back in the office, or they don't want to take a job in another city. They don't want to travel. And so I think there's also that desire. They've had time to think about the path they're on and say, maybe now's the time to explore business ownership. So I think that's a piece of it. You also have more cash on the sidelines than you've ever had. And I also think that, from an investment profile standpoint, there aren't as many real estate deals. there's still some, but there aren't as many as maybe there were a few years ago. Stock market's all over the place. Where are you going to get that yield? And I think when people wise up to the fact that, hey, that business ownership can play a role in my portfolio, and there's tax benefits associated. There's things that you can do. Like, here's a small example. I pay my kids to package my book and clean my office. Well, I pay them a decent little amount every year. It's allowable by the IRS. Now they've got earned income to put into a Roth IRA. So I'm starting their savings at a very young age that they can only do with earned income. Well, if I was a W-2 employee, I can never do something like that.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of good tax benefits that come along with a business like that. Can these franchises, you mentioned about people that maybe have been doing, working in the corporate world, or, perhaps maybe questioning, the path that they're on. Can franchises be run maybe semi-passively or even like passively, and if so, how could that be done?
Yeah, I'll start by saying, no matter what kind of business you're getting into, franchise or non-franchised, full-time, not full-time, it's not easy to stand up a business. There's work that goes into it. I don't want it to ever come across as sugarcoating. However, I do think, again, you're starting on third base instead of first base when you get involved with the franchise versus a startup. Probably 2/3 of our clients are running it what we call semi-passively or semi-absentee. So 1/3 are jumping in full time, hands-on, at least for the time being, and maybe eventually replacing themselves with a manager. But 2/3 out of the gate are putting a manager in place. And there are even some opportunities, there are 3 or 4 of them out there. They're kind of the holy grail. There aren't too many, but where the franchisor will run the business for you and it's entirely passive. That's very rare. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but I'll say that those have obviously been very attractive to a lot of our clients. They've been buying a bunch of those. So semi-passively, it comes down to having a good manager in place. I've got plenty of client case studies where they put managers in place, then they come back and buy another thing from us, and they come back and buy another thing, and they build up this portfolio. It comes down to having a good person in place that you've incentivized correctly. The nice thing about franchising is you do have that franchisor on the sidelines, and even though the buck still stops with you as the owner, that franchisor can kind of tag team with you and be a great resource from a day-to-day technical standpoint that your manager can lean on, so they're not leaning on you as much.
And what are the types of risks that people take on? As you sometimes hear about, obviously no business he has 100% success rate, right? There are failures that take place. Within the franchise industry versus non-franchises, is the failure rate about the same? Is it less? What do the numbers look like?
Yeah, it's certainly less. There are a number of stats out there from the SBA to show, what normal business success looks like, at the 3-year mark, 5-year mark, 10-year mark. And we all know, I think most people know those numbers aren't very attractive. You only hear about the unicorns, but most businesses don't make it. In franchising, it is pretty compelling when you look at the number of businesses. I think it's 92% are still in business after 5 years in franchising. So, that's across industries. That's, pretty large data set out there. Now, that doesn't mean that every franchisee is thriving and hitting all their financial goals, but many are. But only 8% are no longer still in business. So, very compelling when you look at look at it from that standpoint, for sure.
And do the actual corporate franchises, do they spend time and effort trying to make sure that you as an individual owner are successful, and do they provide ongoing support? If you hit a rough patch, or if you're running into issues in the business, are they there to provide support and to be there?
Directionally, yes. Just like any industry, I mean, we have 4,000 franchise brands in the US, and just like any industry, you're going to have strong players and you're going to have some that I wouldn't buy into myself. And so my goal is always to use kind of the filtering criteria of, with our clients, of, the financial model, the competitive advantages. We look at the leadership teams. I'd say nothing is more important to me than that leadership team. I want to see a successful track record of supporting successful franchisees and their background. And I think that is so critical, especially at this times, because you will hit rough patches. This is business ownership. This isn't a truly passive investment in most cases. And so you want those franchisors that are going to have your back, that are going to step in, coach you up, help you through those times, to have that staff in position ready to do that. So that's where we really help our clients navigate, past just the sales messages, and really understand kind of the franchisor behind the scenes. And the great thing is in franchising, you do go in eyes wide open. You've got the franchise disclosure document. You've got historical information on other franchisees' performance. You get to talk to other franchisees during the process and hear about their experience and ask them questions, what we call validation. So you get all of those data points in addition to what you're learning as you're going through the process yourself.
Oh, great. And what are any particular franchises that you like at the moment, or any particular industries related to those franchises that you particularly like, based on what's going on either in the economy or what kind of trends you see with demographics? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say when you look at, I'll give you just a quick sampling of some of the recent placements that we've done, just to show the variety out there. We've had 4 or 5 couples in the past, I'd say 2 months, purchase a kids soccer franchise. Great community involvement, incredible numbers, technology behind the scenes. We've had several clients purchase a business that works with construction sites, with renovations. They provide temporary walls around these sites. It's almost like an equipment rental business, and that once these are in place, you're getting monthly rent checks on these. And you always have renovations in hospitals or airports or retail. It's just a fascinating little niche. I've had several clients buying into dumpsters recently and really, really succeeding with those big time. It's a heavier CapEx type business, but a lot of potential there to kind of disrupt a stodgy industry. I've had some clients buying into dog training recently. I'd say the one that is probably, I think we've had 7 or 8 clients buy into this one now. It's a senior care franchise. And there are a lot of senior care franchises out there. People want to age in place, but they need that in-home care. Well, there's one that was founded by a guy that had built up a 700 location business in the senior space. I mean, this guy knows that he's lived it, breathed it for decades. And he said, hey, there's a better mousetrap to be had. He brought all that knowledge together and put together a franchise system around a better system for the caregivers, for the clients, and their children, who are oftentimes the ones you're dealing with, and then for the owner, where you can do this without having a large team, but it's more of a matchmaking recruitment type business. So those are just a couple of examples. I'd say home and property services continues to be where a lot of people want to get involved. Everything from restoration and water mitigation to roofing to we're always going to need those kind of businesses. Spray foam insulation, that's been a popular one.
Well, some of these franchises you named off are pretty intriguing. Kids soccer franchise, dog training, senior care. These aren't the types of things I think most people would think about when they think about franchises. When you have somebody that comes to you, how do you help them select the right franchise? Do you try and align interest, skills, their life goals? What are things are you kind of like weighing and helping somebody to kind of select the right business?
Yeah, no, we've got a very streamlined process. And so first off, it's entirely free to work with us. We're funded by the franchisors on the back end, very much like a real estate model. And so if you went directly to a franchise company, or if you go through us, you pay the same franchise fee. It's just a sales and marketing expense for the franchisor. We work with over 600 different franchise companies. So what it looks like would be having an introductory call with a client, and we have them fill out just a little bit of paperwork, not a whole lot, but between our conversation and what they share with us, we do a lot of this. And so I can zero in on kind of those key things really fast. And then we show them a wide assortment. We show them best in class across several industries, that can match what they're looking to do from an ownership style and match their financial situation. But essentially, I put myself in their shoes. If I'm them, what are those 10 or 12 opportunities that are available in their market that would be the best match with the strongest franchisors for them to consider? We present those to our clients. They narrow it down usually to 3 or 4, and then we make introductions to the franchisors. Franchisors will take them through a series of calls and presentations to really expose them to the business. Through the process, we like to hold our clients' hands and really bring in funding resources if needed, or a franchise attorney to review the agreement, or at a minimum, just serve as a sounding board for them through the process.
When you make that introduction between the two sides, do the franchisors, do they typically have to sign off on the people that are looking to buy a franchise? I guess there's the process is working on both sides, right? There's a vetting that's going on by both parties. Are there situations where a franchisor that you've seen will actually deny, someone getting involved in their line of work or buying into their business?
Yeah, that's an outstanding question. Absolutely. And I think it's easily forgotten sometimes that it is a two-way street, and they're interviewing you as in the same way that you're interviewing them. And so I'd say out of the gate, some of the initial just kind of filtering criteria would be like net worth, liquid capital. You just want to make sure that you're in a position to buy a business. You're not going to wake up one day and be like, gosh, I'm cash strapped, I shouldn't have done that. And so those thresholds are fairly low, but they still want to make sure you're in a position. And then I've had clients that they've said, hey, I don't think it's the right personality fit. They've come in and they're not asking good questions. Instead, they're telling us how we should be doing things differently. They're like, it's not going to fit. I've gotten that feedback, and I try to coach my clients. But I'd say by and large, the executive level of client that we work with is stronger than the average out there. And as a result, franchisors love FranBridge clients. We work with kind of a higher tier. We go on a lot of podcasts. We work with people that raise their hand wanting to work with us, a lot of referrals, everyone from doctors to Wall Street attorneys to corporate executives to existing business owners, quite a few of those. Of course, I know a lot of your listeners are in the real estate space. I'd say probably 70-80% of our clients invest in real estate as well. I personally do, whether it be real estate syndications or single family homes. I think there's a piece of the portfolio. Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of real estate. I also think business ownership is a nice complement.
Oh, great. You also mentioned about financing. What type of financing opportunities are there out there?
Yeah, quite a few of our clients, some are using cash because they have no better place to find yield, but a lot of them are using SBA loans. SBA loans are very, very common in franchising, where you might put down 20-25% and then finance the rest. Of course, you can always pay it back early. Some of our clients love leverage, others don't. Others will use a retirement plan. It's what's called a ROBS program. And they can roll over their IRA or 401k and essentially self-direct it and purchase the business with their IRA or retirement account. And we have a partner company that helps our clients with all the funding. And then some clients like to use a portfolio loan. So what I'm personally use on my end, because that creates an arbitrage opportunity. Portfolio loan is when you borrow against your non-retirement brokerage account, and then you're able to keep the stocks growing, but then use that funding as a credit line. And for me, I borrow at 5 or 6%, and then I oftentimes purchase, do hard money lending in real estate at 13-14%, and creates arbitrage.
Oh, great. With an SBA loan, is that based off income qualifications? Like, is it like low income, or like if you got a corporate, you mentioned like, attorneys and people work on Wall Street and so forth. If someone's making 150, 200,000 or more a year, could they qualify to get an SBA loan to start a franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, sometimes people are over the threshold, but, oftentimes people are leaving their job to start the franchise and they're still getting an SBA loan. So income is a piece of it. Also just total capital, net worth is a piece of it.
I see. Jon, you've written a book called Non-Food Franchising. What motivated you to write the book, and what exactly do you talk about in it?
Yeah, non-food franchising is, easy to read, 100 pages, really trying to pack a lot of great content in. And we've got a chapter on franchising versus traditional startups. We have a chapter on franchising versus starting, purchasing an existing business, what we call entrepreneurship through acquisition. Talk about franchising and the different industries, the financials, the legal aspects. We give case studies of clients of ours. We talk about different investment strategies with it and portfolio build outs. So really try to pack a lot in. I've had just great response to it. But yeah, would love to offer a free digital copy to any of your listeners. If they come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com, which I'm sure will be in the show notes, sign up for the copy, either audio or PDF. Certainly, if you want to buy it on Amazon as well, all proceeds go to a great nonprofit that we support, Hope International. I'll give a quick plug for them, but would love to support them even more.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we'll include a link in the show notes as well. In addition to the Franbridge Consulting website you just mentioned, are there any other ways in which people can find out more about you, or even just to learn more about franchising in general?
Yeah, if you come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com, sign up for our book, but we also put out a monthly newsletter, and I'll have my assistant reach out to everyone that signs up. And if you'd like to take a next step and actually get on a call with me, I'd be happy to, learn a little bit more about your situation and give you some guidance. And certainly if it makes sense to partner together in your search, would love to help. So that would be one step. Also connect with me at LinkedIn is where I'm most active, and put out some good content most days, and would love to connect out there.
Great. And just to reiterate again, your services are free because you're basically actually paid by the franchisor, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Very much like a real estate or executive search model.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jon, for coming on to the show today. I really appreciate you sharing your insights with the audience.
Thanks for having me, Mo. Enjoy the conversation, and hope we can help a lot of your listeners.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's all for today. And thank you everyone else for tuning in. And until next time, have a great week.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's show. If you are interested in learning how alternative investments can help you build purpose-driven wealth, sign up on the High Rise Capital website to receive our monthly newsletter and free investor ebook. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Thank you for listening to Purpose Driven Wealth, the podcast for empowered investors.